Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening live to the Angel Rock on 105.3 in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. And if you've never been to the show, welcome. And also, if you're returning as a fan of the show, we have a few of those people out there. Thank you. A little bit about myself and the show. I am a Canadian clairvoyant medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, a spiritual teacher and mentor, and also a registered nurse. I'm also quite well versed in the paranormal, and I'll explain why I mentioned that this evening at the beginning. I say that I have, I shouldn't say I say that I do have guests from all walks of life and from whatever they're doing, whether it might be professionally or extracurricularly, they are making a positive change for humanity. And I cover all aspects of the esoteric, the spiritual, as well as a little bit of truth seeking thrown in there. And before we get started, I'm going to try and ask you to draw your attention, if you could please. There is a video out there on rumble.com by somebody by the name of Raven Moonstone. I believe it's News. And the title of it is called Calgary Newfie Family. It's a very serious subject, and they really need a lot of positive prayer, this family, as well as positive energy. If you feel that you could share this story, I think it would help immensely. They really need a lot of help. And I'll leave it at that. Now on to my guest. He's been on this show before, and he's going to be on next week with me too. His name is David Hanzel, and he's been able to sense, see, and hear spirits from a very young age after a near-death experience. As an adult, he decided to spend his life in service to spirit, giving them a voice to tell them their stories and deliver messages to their loved ones. With this dedication, he has been able to help others to understand and validate that there is a life after death, and how to proceed on their life's journey with the help of angels, spirit guides, and their loved ones who have crossed over. He also has a very successful TikTok channel we'll talk a bit about. He also can communicate with pets. He's been very helpful with my own. So welcome, David. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's fun to be back again.
I know. We've been trying to get podcasting in, because I forgot to mention you're also a podcaster too.
Yeah, and
And
I have not done a podcast in a while, and I was going to do another one with you, and then with my hand and everything.
I know. Hey, Dave Petrella. Welcome. Dave's been a guest on the show. He's an astrologer. He's a biologist with science, and he's been a good supporter of our show. So thank you, Dave, for being here. Got two Daves in the house. I want to remind you guys, too. I always forget as I get rambling. And I can tell you every week, and I think as I say, knock on wood, it stays off the bad juju here. But my phone has a mind of its own, and will decide to go into lovely Apple phone, into the spinning wheel of death, as it's called in the Apple culture. So it'll look like I'm there. You'll hear me talking. The screen might go black. And if I disappear, Dave already knows. You guys hang in there. Got my computer right here with StreamYard. I will be back on in like 30 seconds, just in case. Hey, Michelle Pratt from Australia. Welcome. Glad to have you here. So, guys, we are counting down to Halloween, and guess what? Well, we're in Eastern Standard Time Zone. You are too, eh, Dave?
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast over here.
Sorry?
I'm on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's what I thought, in the U.S. So, next week we have a Halloween show. Now, most unfortunately, I had this guest lined up over 3 months ago, and this weekend they very sadly had to cancel. So Dave is going to be free. He already told me for next week. And I think what we're going to do a bit of a panel on paranormal. I'm working on that right now to see whom else we can get to join us. If not, Dave, you are super well versed in the paranormal as well. Like, where do we start? Because we're supposed to be really spooky tonight, but you've got quite the story of your life and what you've been through.
Well, goodness gracious. So we want spooky. See, it's so funny. I don't talk about spooky much.
I know you don't, because you would be a light worker, the buzzword, I guess we could call you, just like myself, right? That's the buzzword people use.
This is, I guess, my opinion, and from what I've known.
Read the comment. I didn't realize this.
David was your guest last year. Oh.
I forgot about that, Dave. That is so cool. Sorry, I had to throw that up there.
Yeah, I'm reading it too. I got the comments on. Yeah, my hair's gotten a little longer, Dave, hasn't it? Um,
I love it.
thanks. I'm gonna just keep growing it. Um,
I know though that you've worked in the paranormal field and
lot of investigations, and I used to go into houses. It was, I haven't done it in a while, and I do enjoy it. I really do. The whole thing is, there was back in the day when I was doing it, there were so many paranormal groups that was so
yeah.
dead set on fear-based things. And that's all they talked about was a fear in the house, a fear in the house, a fear in the house. And I went into a couple of houses. I'm like, you're wrong. And we validated the stuff, but it doesn't
Mhm.
make it none less the spooky. I mean, it's still spooky's fun. It really is.
Mhm.
That feeling you get from just the darkness, some people who are afraid of the dark and all that. I mean, that's cool to have, but I will tell all people this: no matter what ghosts you confront or anything else, you're safe. um they can't do anything to you, really.
Okay, so then let's talk about this then. Let's get into this because I don't know if we talked a bit about this off the camera before, but I don't know about on air. So what was
Yeah.
going on at my house then with Dell, my partner, thrown 15 feet across the kitchen? I have pictures of bite marks, scratch marks.
there's
All,
there's there's something that happens for him because of the fact that you're open. I always tell people this is what I've known, so the guides told me, and this is what I brought back from
mhm,
me is one, a human being, no human being can be possessed. Let's use the word
mhm.
possessed
I agree. Okay.
unless they give
They agree
permission.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or a lot of people will go on investigations and they'll get really drunk for they go, oh, let's go see ghosts, and they get drunk and high and
Well, that's
everything.
just going to lower your vibration and make you a target. Yeah.
Your vibration, and that's how they get in. Um, with your boyfriend, as much as it might have been, he was probably not in the best of moods for a while, and something got into him. Um, that it doesn't mean that they necessarily did it. They explained it to me how it happens. Um, it's kind of like in our humanness, we can cause ourselves a disease. So if we are very, very upset all the time, very, very angry all the time, that can lead to certain diseases. Just because
Absolutely.
it can lead to cancers, it can lead to all kinds.
Absolutely.
So the body manifests itself. So that, I believe, is what would happen is, I mean, thrown across the floor. That it's very rare when that happens. But
He
I
didn't
know in a,
even tell me for 2 days because he is still a skeptic to this day, Dave. He went
yeah,
and grabbed his electricity meter thingy. He's testing all the wires. He has to debunk it 6 ways from Sunday, even to this day, to even,
what happens
he's not
if
open to it.
if he's got it, what happens is the body takes on, it's like being hypnotized, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it this way. Let's to make it easier. Let's say a entity can hypnotize you in a way. Now, we all know under hypnosis, you won't do anything that you would never normally do, but
It's
you
true.
are susceptible to suggestion. So,
Yeah.
going through the error of falling back and all that could be a suggestion that was given so strongly by that entity. Scratch marks. Our bodies can produce scratch marks. I don't tell people this a lot, but I used to have an entity that would always touch me in the middle of the night and left marks. It didn't hurt. We watched them form one time, and it's the body forming them, not the spirit doing it. It's the body
Mm-hmm.
form. It's so odd how our minds in this world is so susceptible. I mean, if people could actually understand, if suggestion could throw you across the room, if suggestion could give you a scratch, a suggestion should make you find a really good job and a really good mate and a really good everything else. Because what you think is what you're going to get. That's just
I'm
how the world.
just reading about, actually, just got into Joe Dispenza. I've heard about him long, and he's just talking about many of these things you're saying right now.
Yeah,
Many, and I agree.
true, and that's what happens. It's for those of you, don't be afraid to go on investigations. I mean, the chances of you getting thrown across the room are
Oh
very.
God, yeah, let's make that clear. Like that's never, almost ever, ever, ever happens, ever.
There's so much behind something like that happening. It's not something that's just willy nilly. You walk into a house, evil spirit picks
I
you up.
agree.
It doesn't work like that. There has to be something there. So there might have been a build up with your boyfriend of something going on. There might have been an attachment to him, not a bad attachment, but just there are. If we want to get on the spooky side, so people know,
Mhm.
people who let's say that somebody dies, and when they died of a drug overdose, they were big time drug addicts, and that was their whole life. They loved the drugs, and that's what they did, and say it was accidental they died. If they don't go over, which we all
Hmm.
have a choice, you don't have to go into the light.
That's
That's all.
right. Yep.
That's all up to
Hmm.
you. Uh, if they don't want to, they're going to try to clamor on to anybody else who is like them or living a life like them, so they can share in the
You
experience.
just said something very important there that I hadn't thought about. Now, I'm not going to say anything on air about this, but and it's not. It's just because it's more private that I don't want to put out there. It has nothing to do with me. But you've just said something there that there are people I know personally that, yes, I could totally see this. Yes, they somebody earthbound, like you said, maybe drugs, maybe alcohol, maybe something like that. You're right. They'd be clamoring for that energy, trying to, if you will, feel the high right through the
Yep.
human body that's there.
Yeah, they're pretty much merging with the soul. Like,
Mm-hmm.
about that because the fact that I guess I'm a spiritual medium. I guess people would peg me, which means I merge with energies. That's how I do my readings. I merge with that
Mm-hmm.
energy. So I'm very well versed in letting energy come very, very close, if not almost completely there. But they know when to stop, and I know when to stop, and my guides know that they should stop. So I've never worried about it. I've never had an experience where an entity came into me and near me and was just terrible. Um, Although the weird stuff about merging with energies, though, is because, uh, because I'm clear empathy too. I've got really high clear empathy, which means that when spirits come through, a lot of times they'll give me their emotions of things that they felt while they were here, like the main
Mm-hmm.
emotion, what's feeling, and then I've got to feel it. So sometimes, if I don't watch it, I've gotten extremely sad all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and they were really sad. And then when that happens, the bad thing is, as a medium, my communication gets cut off because it starts going into the human side of David, and I'm trying to stop it, and I lose the connection. So
Mm-hmm.
I tend to try to stop those things right off the bat, or just tell them, "Hey, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop now."
Yeah, but
But
some spirits I find are more powerful than other, even with the personality that they
there,
have.
there is, and it's the personalities they've accumulated. It's how many times you've been around the block. So a newer spirit who's here, who maybe only came to Earth like 2 or 3 times, when they go, they're probably not going to be very versed in helping somebody out that well. They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
know much. They're not
Yeah.
going to have accumulated that. Now, a spirit who said, hey, I've done 1 billion lives, I've done 100 lives there, I've been 100 lives in another place and everything. Those ones, those ones are pretty strong. And then the ones filled with rage, rage is a low level, it's a lower level
Energy or vibration.
situation. And if you're like in a haunted house, like let's go back to like the boyfriend thing, not your boyfriend, but anybody else. If there was anything that was hanging around there quite a bit because of the fact it was upset, or just what the drug thing and all that, it's going to pick out people who have a lower vibration, and it's going to attach to them.
I want to put that out there though, and I know you didn't see this concern. Dell doesn't do drugs because everybody seems to think he does because he's got long hair. That's not what this is. But
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying because
Oh, yeah,
okay,
it's not
so
about it. You can smoke a joint and go do
he
a heart.
doesn't though. Like that's the thing, and I don't have a problem with it. Like I don't care. I just don't care for it, neither does he. But I don't have a problem with anybody that uses it. I say, hey, you go be yourself. Do what you need to do, and if it works for you, great. Not my
Yeah.
job to judge.
There's just certain instances I always tell people, yeah, I don't care what people do. It's none of my
Mm-hmm.
business. But when you put yourself into situations of the spiritual and you alter your mind too much, let's say, because I do know some mediums and spiritual people, smoke a little, or they'll have a glass of wine
Yeah.
before reading. They're not possessed or anything.
No.
It's just not going to happen. I mean, this has got to be something that's in your psyche, something that's done all the time, something that's like that's more important than your life is the
Mm-hmm.
drugs, or drinking or stuff like that. Those people are probably more susceptible to things. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think your boyfriend. As far as that goes, I just think it was a mood thing with him.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was maybe a mood he was in, um, and maybe it was lasting for a
It's
while.
definitely moody, and I'm not trying to say anything bad against Geminis in any way, shape, or form, but I'd never been out with a Gemini before. And Dave, you'll appreciate this being the astrologer, into astrology here. And this woman had said to me she was a witch, and she happened to be a friend of my son's, eldest son's, and she came over and she was asking, I think Del was at work, and she said, well, what sign is he? And I said, he's a Gemini. Oh my God. And even he will admit, you never know what Del you're going to get because it's the twins, right? And it's like sometimes you get one, sometimes you get another.
Yeah, it seem like bipolar without being diagnosed,
Yes.
up
Mm-hmm.
and down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an Aries, so I don't know. Well, I'm a weird Aries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that would be the only thing. Spooky wise for me, if you want to, I
Well,
can
I was
tell
going to ask you, Alien, ET, Bigfoot, Dogman, we could go anywhere with any of this. Like, it doesn't have to just be ghosty stuff. That's why I put all things paranormal.
well, when I was a very young boy,
Mm-hmm.
and I told you this already, I was probably about 3 or 4. How the story goes is, I was in the back seat of the car and we were driving home from I don't know when. I can't remember that. My mom and dad were driving, and me and my brother, my older brother's in the car. My younger brother hadn't been born yet, and I was complaining, I guess, about wanting some toys. And I wanted toys really bad, and my parents said, "No, tomorrow when you wake up, we'll get you a toy, whatever." And when we got home, my dad pulled me out of the car and lifted me up, and with my dad facing forward and me facing behind him, and over the sky came this huge, huge ass light. I mean, it's really big.
Mm-hmm.
To this, I don't think it was a shooting star that went across, and I saw it, and my parents then saw it, and they all looked at each other like, "Wow, what was that?" And then all of a sudden, on the door was a plastic bag filled with little toys, little safari toys. There's zebras and a little
Was
car,
it E.T. Santa?
and it said to David on the thing. And my parents were like, "What's this?" And my dad, they go in the house. My dad calls my Aunt Beverly, my dad's sister, and says, "Did you leave something for David?" She said, "No, we didn't leave anything for David." Nobody ever said they left anything for David. They were just there.
Because I
They
remember
just,
you tell me about the light and the little boy, but I don't remember about the toys.
yeah.
You tell me that is phenomenal.
Yeah, and the toys were there, and I had that. And then it was a few years later, not long after that. I mean, I used to always hear voices as a child. I heard lots of voices, and I used to hear them way more outside my ear, objectively, um, for the longest time. Um, but a little while after that, we were in North Carolina, and I wrote this in my book. I call him the Man in the South. And when my dad was taking me to bed, he was carrying me the same way, and a being stepped out and just stood there and just looked at me. And I knew when I was looking at him, it was just kind of saying, because he didn't speak, but you could understand what he was thinking. And
Telepathy, then, yeah. Mm-hmm.
he's like, I'm just letting you know I'm here. And I was like, okay, I don't know who you are. But now the weird thing was, I told everybody what he looked like. And then as I started growing up, before I even knew about dragons, I started drawing dragons. I started drawing all this other stuff.
I love dragons.
Me,
See my tattoo. Again, turning it around.
I was drawing dragons before I knew what a dragon was. Like when I was in
Mm-hmm.
fifth grade, I was drawing all these things like that. And that's because that being I saw, which people freak out about, was a reptilian. And I didn't know what a reptilian was.
Mm-hmm.
And when people talk about how bad reptilians are and everything, I can only go back to my experience with that reptilian. And although he was very not harsh, but he's very straightforward, he didn't seem to have a lot of emotion to him. But there was nothing bad about him. There was nothing I remembered. He didn't want to do anything to me, nothing like that.
Do you know what
I,
I almost think, though, David? So I didn't just wanted to stop you there for a sec. Is I almost feel because I have met people that have experienced which would possibly be different races, like the Anunnaki or reptilians or what have you. And not everybody has a negative experience. They actually have a more positive type experience, not a human experience, like you said, with the emotion and what he was harsher, like you said. But I'm almost wondering, and when I try and check in with spirit, what I almost feel is just as human beings are the way we are, that we, there's going to be some good and there's going to be some bad, that this can also happen with these other races.
With other races. That's exactly true.
Mm-hmm.
His thing wasn't to hurt anybody or do anything. I almost think he was almost just watching, like protecting me or
Mm-hmm.
something.
I almost feel like maybe in one of your lifetimes you were part of the family with the
Oh,
reptilians.
uh, some say they still live underground here. Some say that we have DNA from them. He wasn't the only being I met. I met some other beings as well. After I came out of the coma, I had a little dude. He looked like, if anybody's ever seen Beetlejuice, um, the guy in Beetlejuice who was smoking the cigarette in the waiting room, like he died from,
With the little pinhead in the suit?
Pumpkin head guy.
Okay.
They said, "How did you die?" And he was smoking a cigarette, and he
Okay.
was like burnt. That's what this alien almost looked like. He was very frail.
Wow.
He was very dark, 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 dark gray, and he did have huge eyes, but he didn't look like what people have drawn. But he was extremely intelligent. And he was coming to me quite a bit, and he was actually answering questions in my readings a couple
I
times.
was wondering if he would, because yeah, that's what it almost feels like when you're talking about it.
Yeah, because he was answering questions. He had showed me how he was. I had asked a question about their gravity or feeling on the ground, and he showed me him like a vision, I should say. We'll put it that way. He was had a chain attached to him, and then it was attached to the bumper of a car, and then that car was attached to probably like 30 other cars. And then
Mm-hmm.
he started walking, and as he walked, they just pulled along like so effortlessly. And then he walked through a small lake and dragged the cars right with him. And he was telling me, I remember him telling me, all is possible, everything's possible. And I think that was his main thing. Like, he wasn't telling me how he did it, he just kept telling me everything is possible now, which is what I needed to hear. I just came out of a coma, I was back in earth and freaking hated it here. And he's like, yeah, no, just do your thing, just keep doing it. He has not showed up for about 3 years now, so I haven't saw him
Do
since.
you think that maybe he was a healer from the other side, just sort of coming in that moment in time because it was such a time of trauma, obviously, and
Yeah,
rightfully so?
a lot of people think, like, when, like, a lot of beings I talk to, they're not necessarily dead. They
Mm-hmm.
are, they're in a physical existence, but it's different than ours. And I
Different
think,
realm.
yeah, it's like a different, it's just a different dimension. I think most of the, me personally, from what I know from these guys, my guides and everything, are the aliens or the spaceships and all that stuff. And people go, we don't see enough of them and all that. They're always here. They're in the
Mm-hmm.
sky all the time. They are disguised. You just can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Same with aliens and all that. But I've had quite a few beings come in that I knew were alive. They just didn't live here. But
Okay, yeah, I agree.
like ultra terrestrials and all that, or angels. There's a lot of people mistake aliens for angels a
Mm-hmm.
lot. They'll say, "Oh, I saw this angel and he looked like this." I'm like, "That wasn't an angel. That was alive. That was literally a live, breathing thing that they just can manipulate everything. They know how to separate." I know it sounds really weird, and I don't mind talking about it because I know people, you believe it, don't believe it. It's all good. Um,
People that are here are open to it. We have some questions. That's how I have Michelle's highlighted, but I want to hear this, and I know everybody else is because more comments are following with this. So go ahead, but I'm going to get to these two questions eventually.
the one thing that I've found that they told me that the only way I can put it together is they know how to separate their molecules.
Oh
And
my God, you're reading my mind again, Dave. We do this off air and on air because when you said anything is possible and when you explained what it is, that's exactly what Spirit showed me. And I've studied and I've read that we've been taught that everything's solid when it really isn't. There's space in between every molecule. And if you can separate it, right?
we're solid when we're lower energy. We are low. Human beings are. We're in a low vibration, so of
Mm-hmm.
course we appear solid. We can't walk through chairs and stuff. It's very low. It's going like this slow, so we bump
Mm-hmm.
into it. But those beings, their vibration is so high
They can just
that
go right through.
they can just walk through it. They can walk through, people walk, and that's how aliens take people through walls.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they do it. I don't know. I have asked.
I almost say, I don't know why I'm getting visions tonight, but I'm almost getting like alien and wrapping their vibration around the human as they go through a wall because the humans is so low.
That's exactly where I was going to. They basically what they're doing, they figured out a way to manipulate the energy around everything
Yeah.
to speed it up. So that's basically what they're doing. They speed up the energy of the wall, they speed up the vibration of us, they speed up the vibration of everything. You may be in that bubble, who knows? And that's how we go through. We're supposed to be, I know a lot of the spiritual people, one of their buzzwords is fifth dimension, fifth dimension. We're going into the fifth dimension. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we're not going to the fifth
No,
dimension.
I know.
It's not here. We're getting everybody into the fourth right now, pretty much, and not everybody's going. But the fifth dimension, that's something like a lot of higher. I don't want to put it like people are more special than others, but they're in the hierarchy, knowledgeable people. Those are the ones more in going to the fifth, to the fifth. Not on this earth. This earth eventually will be in the fifth, but I think there's also going to be a fourth dimension earth all the time and a third dimension earth all the time, because people who've never been here before, like there's a lot of souls who haven't been to this earth that have been around for eternity. They don't want to come here, but they might want to come here one day. They won't be able to jump into fifth dimension. They're going to have to how to move up to
Well,
it.
let's go into this question from Michelle then, because I get a lot of questions like similar to this. And, I've had people even say that, well, what happens to all these souls that passed away in the last 3 years? And are they angry? Is this why we're seeing all these hauntings? And then you try and explain that the moment you're born, before you're born, when your exit point can be, like yourself and your death experience can be a built-in exit point possibly. But when you're going to leave. This was planned for. It's not like it just happened accidentally to all these people and they left. But try and explain that, right? So the question, go ahead, and then I'll ask the question.
A lot of people you talked about the angry spirits who passed over. Okay, one, I have to tell you this. On the other side, I'm not talking about this. I'm not denouncing demons and all this. On the other side, none of these things exist. They're not there. All the way on the other side, when you go all the way over where you're going to go through the light, through the everything, you won't encounter demons. You won't encounter any of that. Now, you can go to lower levels if you want to know what that is, because there's like 7 lower levels, and some of them are really bad, but they're not evil. It's just like there's a place where all the screams go to. So if you walked in there, you'd be like, what is this?
Because we're on the same page here, because that's exactly, had you asked me 15 years ago, I've been dealing with this stuff my whole life, but it was the experience I had in my home that I said, would I wish it on a blade of grass? No. But do I look back in anger? No. I'm grateful for it, because I would not be doing what I'm doing now. None of this would have happened had I not had that experience.
Oh, sure. I know. I talk to spirits all the time, but I knew nothing of the other side except for hearing angels and guides constantly and thinking, what the hell?
F is that.
It wasn't until they took me over and said, okay, this is what it's really like. Because I tell people, I'm like, there were so many things I was so wrong about. But as far as like the other side, those things that exist, I think those things exist in between the two worlds. That's where I think where you find your lower level energies and all that stuff.
Even lower, I'm going to get to your question, Michelle, even lower dimensional entities that, because there's, like you said, I love what you said, there's got to be a place for the screams to go. I agree. The other thing is, where was I going with this now? Lower dimension. Oh, about hell. Okay, you had asked me years and years ago about hell. Okay, because I was raised Roman Catholic. I never bought into religion myself. I'm not knocking religion for people. Some people need it. I'm not my job to judge. Just for myself, that it just never resonated. Okay. And especially, I just never believed, because I believe, and we've talked on air and off air, that I've had a near-death experience as a toddler. And I never believed that God was this, big force and was going to punish people and there's retribution. It just didn't feel right.
It's not. Hell is in your mind. I mean, there's definitely a hell in your mind. Like if you have that strong belief when you go over, the universe says, hey, you get whatever you believe. The law of belief states it. It's a universal law, and I study a lot of the universal laws. There's so many of them, and law of belief says whatever you feel you are, think you
Mhm.
are, whatever you believe in is what you get. So when you die, a lot of those people, they'll see the light or something, and the first thing in
To
their
be
head,
terrified.
yeah, I'm not going in there because I did some bad things, and I know if I go there, I'm going to go to hell. And then they'll start manifesting stuff like that around them. And trust me, on the outside of that, there are beings over there going, "Hello, we're over here. No, come here, come here." They
I
try.
have a theory even about near-death experiences. I've told you this on air, off air, as well as many people on, through the shows. I've studied this professionally and personally for 40 years. And you will hear of the occasional experience where somebody will have a hellish experience. I have seen cases of where it's what people believe, the strong religious dogma, manifestation happens a heck of a lot more quickly than it does in this plane. So you're right. If you believe it, you can create it. But the other
Yeah,
thing I've looked into and I am willing to entertain in some situations is I believe that, say, somebody that their heart has stopped, but not completely. They're not completely what would be considered clinically dead. Okay. I'm almost wondering if they start to pass through the dimensions a lot more slowly, and whether it's belief, what they hold, whatever, they end up in one of those more denser, lower vibrational
is that
astral
what
planes, if you will.
Dante's Inferno was? That's where he ended up in one of the lower levels.
Who was
That's
that? Sorry.
Dante's Inferno, that book.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I believe he ended up in. I always looked at it this way, and this is my guides explained this to me a couple times when I would question things, and they said, if you believed in a hell, you'd have to believe that there was a being who was evil enough to send you someplace for doing something as petty as not believing in them. And
Mhm.
they said that doesn't exist.
Mhm.
And I said, yeah, I know. But I did a lot of research about a couple of years after my near death, and I looked up near death experiencers who had all these really terrible things. And then if you can look up their names a little more, you can start finding that I think about 90% of them either came from strict religious background, or they were in the church and they faked those. And they said that in order to bring that back to tell
Mhm.
people that they go to hell and that they saw it personally because people weren't believing it. Less and less people are believing in hell, and less people are not caring. Um,
Mhm.
the hell, I guess it's the word. If I can explain to people what I know, whatever karma is what's at play here. Karma is literally just the balance of experience. That's all
Yes.
karma is. It's a balance of experience. And you could have good karma, bad karma. The reason we come back down here is because we created karma and we have to feel what we put out. Um, so let's say somebody on TikTok had asked me about Jeffrey Dahmer and all of them. They said, "What do you think happens to them?" And I said, and I was trying to explain to them that one, no soul is left behind, no matter how evil or how bad they did things here. Everybody on the other side wants them to get back to who they really are. They really do.
Mhm.
That might take eons. Who knows? But I would think
Oh,
someone like
speaking of spirits, my lights just went into rainbow. I have no idea why. Sorry, go ahead.
okay. I know we're talking about Jeffrey Dahmer, so we're over the rainbow.
Yeah.
Um, so the ones like that,
Uh,
I do know this. They will have to know not only the victim, because they'll be confronting the victims at some point, or maybe have to do a life with them and be on the other end.
mhm.
But they'll have to know how everybody else felt. All the things that was felt around that person that killed. So let's say if I killed Joe Schmo, um, so Joe Schmo, everybody that loved Joe Schmo so much that went through hell because he was murdered, I have to feel it. I have
Mhm.
to know what that was like. So I will probably spend lifetimes with loved ones dying well before their time. So I know what it's like for that. I don't know if that's the case. It's karma doesn't mean the exact thing. Like a lot of people go, oh, that lady said something bad and she tripped. That's karma. That's not
No,
karma.
that's not karma. No. Mm-mm.
Unfortunate that she slipped, or funny because she was mean. But the karma is however she made somebody feel by expressing what she did or what she said. That's the karma she has to come back to her. And then I always tell people the hardest thing to tell people is sometimes some people who got killed maybe were the killer in another life. And this is them
Yes.
working on the karmic debt. We don't know. We don't know. So it's kind of hard to say.
Well, okay, so let's get into a few questions. Hi, Debbie Schmoley. She goes, I wonder if Joe Schmo is any relation to me. Debbie Schmoley, Joe Schmo. So Michelle Pratt asked, curious, is there a lot of angry spirits who have passed over the last couple of years?
Mm, I know some people say that it all depends on where you place your focus and your energy. It really does. One person's perception is that's all they're encountering is something like that, but that's just because that's where their perception is. Where another person says there isn't. I'm talking to so many people. I've done a lot of readings now with people who died of COVID, and it's odd. And it's first, it was hard for them to give me the symptoms, and then they got it down pat. Now they all come in and just give me the same thing over and over. I'm like, oh, COVID. Okay, they died of COVID, right? They're like, yep. um, they know now that they're there. They're like, damn, I knew I should have. I was supposed to change something or do something different, and I didn't. So I ended up leaving. But none of them were angry at all. Some of them, it was their how do I say this without sounding like a schmuck? Um, it was what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to have died from it. A lot
Yeah.
of people, a lot of people don't understand that sometimes certain diseases and deaths, when a lot of people get them, it's like we take one for the team. It's like they do it in order for doctors to learn how to cure it, or in order for a life lesson for somebody else, or for yourself. So sometimes it's like that. I haven't seen. I don't encounter a lot of evil spirits at all. I've or angry ones. But
I do, and I don't want them, and I have. It's kind of lessened off,
yeah,
and it might be.
it's how
Mhm,
we're wired too. So it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I mean,
mhm.
okay, I have been through investigations where there was less than pleasurable energies around me, but how it works for me is I have learned, and if anybody's an empath, pay attention to this. If you're empath, because I hear people that they post the memes of them going into Walmart in their hazmat suits, and it's a joke, and I know it's funny and all that. Being an empath does not have to be a curse whatsoever.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I am an empath, and I try and tell people this. It's not a curse. It says, look at it like a superpower, positive, amazing, wonderful.
I tell people this because I've had to do this since I was a child. I take inventory of myself every day before I go someplace. I will tell myself, okay, how do I feel? I feel pretty good. Do I have any pains? Nope. Oh yeah, my elbow hurts because I had surgery. So of course, my elbow hurts, blah, blah, blah. So okay, I got quick inventory. When I walk into a place, if I change for any reason off that, I'm like, I always say to myself, haha, that ain't me.
I
And then
always ask myself this. Same thing. Or I'm out somewhere and all of a sudden I have a feeling for no reason. Like anxiety is a big one for me. But I find, and I'm sure most parents do, but my boys have gifts as well. And my son, my eldest, has severe anxiety. And he doesn't live with me anymore. And I'm not an anxious person. And I'll be walking around and I've got this nagging anxiety. It's like finally I got to stop for a second, go, where is this coming from? Is this mine? No, it's not. Return to sender. And I know who, I don't attach anything but love to it, but I
yeah,
know where it's coming from. I know exactly. It's either my kid or it's somebody around me. Same as anger, sometimes anything like pain too, because I will feel people's pain. Like I can touch, I don't have to touch them. You can feel it even distance wise from somebody, what it is. And again, it's knowing what's yours and what's not, right?
and that's exactly it. It's just knowing what's yours, and then also understanding. I know I see a question. Somebody said it's a blessing now that I've learned how to uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
turn. And when you are a empath, listen, you are set up to raise vibration. That's what you're set
Mm-hmm.
up for.
Yeah.
Empath can feel and take on stuff. A lot of empaths will take on somebody's anger. I used to do that when I was younger. I would take on the anger. Those people would feel better, and I walk away with the anger, and they'll say, "Dave, you deal with this because this is theirs. They couldn't. You took it from them, so you deal with it. Get rid of it. Go back to yourself." So I learned how to do that. That's why. That's how when I do mediumship readings, I always tell people if I seem distant or I don't seem emotional because of this stuff, it's because I'm separated from it. Totally separated from it. I just let them give me what it is. It's almost like if anybody knows who Saint Germain is,
I love Saint Germain.
Saint Germain transmutes negative power. That's what the violet flame
Yes,
is. It transmutes. That's what an empaths think of yourself as the violet flame. When something bad comes to you, you
I love this.
transmute that, mother, and you make it good and send it right back out to the universe. Then, the universe is going, yeah, we'll take the help from you. You know,
Hmm.
so
I
that's
love what you're sharing here because, there's a lot of people, I'm finding a lot of people are awakening right now to their
a
spiritual
lot.
gifts and what have you. And, I believe like you said earlier, there's infinite possibility. Everything is possible. I didn't say it the way you did it, but what I'm saying is, I also believe that we have the abilities of other beings that we see, but for whatever reason, being in these dense, fragile, heavier type bodies, we come in with spiritual amnesia into this lifetime. I look at Earth as a school. I really, really do. And, I think people are first, we're never taught to nurture these gifts and abilities that we have, but also people are now awakening for, like you said, moving, if it is into fourth dimension. And, I'm finding a lot of people have no idea what to do with these gifts. Like, what's going on? Am I going crazy? So to hear these kind of things positive, I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's basically us just remembering who we really are.
Thank
That's it.
you.
Can
I
I
should have
answer?
just let you say that sentence. You could have said it. You said it in how many quick words.
Dave asked, and I wanted to answer this real quick. Do we have a
Okay.
year when the Earth will move into the fifth, David? Can you
Thank you.
answer?
I missed that. Thank you.
Um, I don't have an exact year. There is not an exact year. It's been. This is one of those things where it's everything that's written on the other side, it's written, and the future is predetermined, but the future is also always interchangeable. So you can always hop down one timeline and go to another timeline. The timeline that you're talking about, um, unfortunately I won't see it in this lifetime here. I'll see it in my next one because I know I have to come back, which really pisses me off. But
I'm
the
sure most of us do.
I know a lot of us who are doing this work who goes, we don't want to come back. We did this work. No, this work was like training. You have to come
Mhm.
back and do so. So there's some other stuff. It's something. What is it? 2062 you said? Hold on a minute. I'm talking. It's before the threes. So it's almost like something really major is right around 2062. 2062. Don't quote me on that, but
Yeah.
it's quite a ways off, but we are going in the right direction. It only takes 1% of consciousness to move over to where we need to be. And we're like literally this close. And that's why we're having all the crap with the political crap and all that. Everything has to come out. Everything has to be unmasked. Everything has to.
Okay, so let's go there because we hear about the apocalypse and whatever. When you break down the word apocalypse, it means to reveal once which was once hidden.
Yeah.
Now, how many things are coming to the surface right now? I mean, if you can't see that,
Yeah.
there's
This is
no way you
yeah,
can't not
yeah.
see the
This
truth.
is a type of apocalypse happening right now with exactly what you said. The
Mhm.
unseen is becoming seen. It's becoming known.
Yes.
And it's I used to laugh at people like in the states where I am during COVID. It was always the ones who didn't want to wear a mask or refused
Hmm.
to wear a mask who were coming out. You couldn't put a mask back on them. It's like they took off their mask. Now they're mean, evil people, and
Hmm.
they're not going to listen to anybody else. They were so happy about this. It's really odd, but we needed it to happen. We needed this to happen all over the world. So if the world seems like a terrible place, you got to do this. Focus differently. Unplug yourself. You really do, because the world isn't as bad as what you think it is. the world is only as bad as what you're being shown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, being shown stuff by a lot of different people, and we actually have, and I've talked about this before, that we this is supposed to change. This is harvest. If anybody's familiar with the law of one, um, the law of one, this is harvest, and it started in 2012, and I think it goes to 2032. I can't remember. Um, but what happens is there's harvestable souls, which means if you are of service to self, when you reincarnate, you will go to all the world that is all service to self. If you have service to others, you will go to that world. So that's the harvestable. That's where I'm not saying ether is bad, but I can tell you, I can give you examples of people who are of service to self. One, politicians, service to self. They're all, almost every one of them, service to self. Religious leaders, service to self. It's all
Hollywood.
Hollywood. It's all about me, 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 me. And I don't care if who I step on. I don't care if I have to kill 50 people to get where I want to be. I'm going to do it. That serves the self. I'm not saying they're bad people because of the fact that evil is in the eye of the beholder. It is a perception. Because what one person perceives as evil and it feels terrible to another person, it feels as good to us like an ice cream cone, you know? So it's hard to say. Those people will be, those souls will be in other places. All souls eventually come together. I mean, we all eventually go back to the exact same place where we started,
Okay,
you
so
know?
let's. I got a question about that then. Okay, so I agree. I always try to remember, tell myself, say it out loud. And when I say it, I really do mean it. And I try to remind myself of this, that it's not my job to judge. Or, like you said, evil is in the eye of the beholder, how it's perceived and what. And I agree. We can't call things good or bad. People have different experiences depending on where they are in their soul evolution, lives, past lives, what have you. So, when you say that somebody is of service to self, and so their next lifetime they will go to a place where it, I guess, where it's service to self,
You got to
what
match.
what pardon?
You got to match to that.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, like attacks, like, I understand that, but my point is, what I'm trying to say, has spirit shared with you what the purpose of that would be? Would it be so that the tides are turned and then you in the next lifetime would experience what maybe you gave to people in this lifetime?
The way it's explained to me, oh, let me put it in human. Okay. You have a kindergarten class and there's or a class of kids. Let's say kindergarten. Okay, they're kindergarten kids are running around. There's like 10, 15 of them. Let's say there's a class of like 50. So there's like 20, 25 of them who are just not good. Okay, and there's 25 who's really good. Okay, the perception, we'll say, service self, service others. It's a lot easier to separate them and then take small bits from one side and bring it over than it is to try to bring them all over.
Okay, so then it's almost like we're trying to move back towards balance. That's what the vision I'm being given because,
Balance
okay.
is actually, that's probably even the best word. We need balance. And right now, the tails of the scales are. We've been a patriarchal society for a very, very long time. We were matriarchal in the beginning. It was more feminine in the very beginning. I'm talking before human beings here for some of you
Mhm.
who before the actual human beings were here. It was more feminine. It stayed feminine and then it switched over to the male part. It went good for the male part for what needed to happen. But then logic kind of burnt itself out. Um, and now it's going back to matriarchal. We're just trying to get the balance back again. That's why so many more women are coming out now. So many more women are being a lot stronger now and everything. The average person might look at it and go, well, it's women's rights. Oh no, this goes way beyond women's rights. This has nothing to do with
But I
women.
almost find though that then you get people, it almost seems people that are service to self, they take advantage of where this is moving and then we get clobbered with it. Like it's almost like it moves too far. You
We
know what I
are,
mean? Hmm.
I believe that we will achieve it, and I believe what Dave had asked before, that that will happen
Hmm.
eventually. And it's when like the natives say soon, they probably know the same thing I do. and that is
Well, let's read this out for people listening because they won't be watching because this our podcast yet. And I'll remind you guys, actually, you're listening to the Angel Rock Live on 105.3 out on United Public Radio Network, also known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network or just UPRN. Please share and like with your friends because we have shows for everything you could possibly think of with the amazing hosts that we have on here. So please share that. And our podcasts also, say you're not catching this or you want to share it, are shared anywhere you can think of where podcasts or talk radio are carried. We are carried. So I'm going to read Dave Petrola's question here. He says, I agree, David. I believe there are harvest points along the cycles of time. The universe presents situations to us, and then depending on how we respond, we're assigned our next dimension.
That's absolutely, absolutely freaking correct, David.
Okay, I want to throw something, I throw a monkey wrench in there though. So I also believe too that we also set some goals, if you will, about things we may want to learn in this incarnation to help our souls evolve, what have you. Now, where does that come into play where our next assigned dimension is going? Do we just sort of set those? Do we make our contracts, if you will, or our things that we're planning? My brain's going a mile a minute here. Things that we would like maybe while we're still, as I call it, back home, you know, deciding some of the things we may want to encounter, learn, never mind with karma, some of the things we must experience and feel. Does that all get built into where the dimension will be?
I believe it does. Um, Another way, if you guys want to go a little even deeper down the rabbit hole, which I love to do. Um,
You should see what Dave and I talk about when we're not on air. My
uh,
God.
but I'll make this as easy as I can. I think that's what I know that spirit uses me for a lot of things. Is like he's so simple. You just tell him, he'll make it simple. Um, so as far as when we're coming, there was a time where a lot of us when we were coming here is literally just to reincarnate to experience different aspects of love, which is also which is an ongoing thing. But in the last few, I don't know how long. I'm just going to guess. I'm throwing out a number. This is just to put out a number, okay, guys? 100 years. Okay, so in the last 100 years, there are people coming here for specific reasons, and the specific reason is to help bring the Earth over.
Mhm.
So those people are here, but we are mixed in with the people who are here just going, I need to experience love and life and work off my karma. There's those people here too. There's nothing wrong with that. I will say there's more old souls being born now in the last 20 years than there has been in a very long time. I'm talking most people on this planet right now are old souls. Some
I
of the
agree.
that are on this planet though are still working off a whole hell of a lot of karma. Because I don't see you people ask me this question and I hate to say it on TikTok, but I can say it here. So haha. On TikTok, people ask me, I don't want to come back. Do we have to come back? The short and skinny of it is yes, you do. If you have karma, you have to come back at some point. Now, it doesn't matter when you come back, and you could, because you're an eternal being, you could do it billions and billions of years from now. But eventually, you have to work off that karma, and in order for you to rise. So, like archangels, like the seventh level people, the archangels, the and like some of the saints and the spirits, and Jesus and Buddha and all these people, they do not have to come back here anymore because they've worked off their karma. They've got all their karma done. If they were to come back now, they know, and Jesus actually was aware that if you go back, Jesus, he goes, you know, you're going to get some karma, right, dude? He's like, yeah, I'll have to change it. And he came here and did his stuff. And I guess apparently he escaped without much karma. Um, but there are a lot of those. That's why people always go, I'm a reincarnated angel. And I always want to go, bullshit. Because you're not. I mean, you can come back with a lot of angelic energy from someplace or a lot of your higher. But an angel, if an angel came back here, one, they'd probably be a drug addict, probably be addicted to that, drug addict, sex addict, probably be all kinds of things because they wouldn't know how to handle this. Plus, their energy is so pure and so big. I don't think the human body could contain it. Um,
Mm-mm. I don't
pure,
either.
pure angel. I mean, you can come back with parts of it. I mean, I came back with uh, Apparently, I probably came back with a lot of knowledge that my higher self has and brought it back with me because I talk about stuff now. It's like I have no clue what this stuff means and I don't know where it comes from, you know?
Yeah, but you said we've had that conversation on air the last time you were on here as well as off air. You don't know if, like, you had quite the experience, what you went through with your coma, within your death experience.
I
After
took
you got out of the hospital, you got in another accident. But my whole point I was going with this is we've talked about where you will walk in, and a lot of people may not know what a walk in is.
yeah.
Do you want to share that with them?
A lot of people assume I'm a walk-in. I don't. I can't tell you, and here's the reason why. Even if I was a walk-in, I probably wouldn't know because the contract that a walk-in has is that walk-in would have to forfeit his personality and have the veil come over him just like everyone else. So that walk-in would go into a body that's still perfectly fine, and he would finish living out that person's life to
So
fulfill.
what would happen though? So let's back up a little bit because there'll be people listening to this who never heard this term, have no clue what it means. So within your death experience, right? I believe that we built, if we've got a really difficult life ahead, and it seems, just from the study, and I haven't studied every person on the planet, but people that have very difficult lives, sometimes they seem to have accidents or whatever may happen, illnesses where they've had a near death experience. They could choose to leave at that time, and then for whatever reason another soul is wanting to incarnate at that time. It's a perfectly good body, and they will walk in to that body after the near death experience. Am I explaining that correctly?
You are. Um, I am not confessing to be anything, but I'm going to use me as an example. Okay.
Yeah,
So
please do, because you're not, but we've had this conversation, and I kind of
let's
feel like you are.
let's say when I came, and I'm sure there's something to it, but let's say coming here was I was supposed to do something in particular. Let's say, David, you're going to be meeting him and you're going to talk about this and you're going to channel us and you're going to be able to do this. And I said, okay, let's do that. And then I go through my life, I get sidetracked. I start out, having all the abilities and all that. And then I get sidetracked and my life just goes to complete hell in a handbag. So and then I end up in a coma and I die. Now over there, they're like, okay, he can't die yet, and he doesn't can't go back to fulfill it. So this guy who knows David very well says, you know what? I'll go back as you.
Okay.
Take on your memories. I'll take on all your things. I'll take on that. And I'll forget who I am, and I'll finish completing what you were supposed to have done because it still needs to be done, and you're not capable of it at this point. So David probably says, "God, no problem," because I'm tired, and says, "I just want to stay." So that's what happens. That's what a walk-in would be. So I would come back, and I know where people get it, and I've often wondered it before when I studied them is I have phantom memories of places I have never been, and
Mhm.
I always have to ask people, is that a memory? Is that someplace I went? And my mom's like, no, that's not someplace you went. I'm like, oh, I still see it. I've seen these houses I've lived in. I've seen places I've lived in, which I don't know, but I could be picking up other people's stuff too. But a walk-in most likely would not know that they are a walk-in because part of the plan is for you to come in and finish out in that body with all the same circumstances what that original soul.
But the reason why people, I think, have picked up on some of this phenomena too, as much as that soul, say, walks in, there's a change. There's a big difference. I didn't know you before your near death experience, but you're very open about from who you were to who you are now.
I am a completely different person.
Yes.
I'm a
Hmm.
completely different person, and I guess maybe part of me maybe doesn't want to admit it. Part of me doesn't know. I don't
Even
know.
in appearance, David.
Yeah, I look different too.
Hmm.
I look a lot.
Hmm.
I look the same, but I actually look. I looked younger when I came out of the coma than before I went in. And
You used to smoke, you did you were heavier, you were a musician, you
oh,
were into comedy, all this other stuff. And now you're like a complete, I mean, never mind the memories. Like you said, a lot of memories too. You
yeah.
don't remember.
Yeah, I spent my whole life wanting to be a musician, wanting to be an actor, wanting to be a comedian. and I did all those things, and I was getting really good at it, like comedian wise. I was getting really good at it. I was doing shows, I was doing
You're
all
still
kinds of
pretty
stuff.
funny.
I don't know. Sometimes people call me a
You
comedian.
are.
What do they call me? A comedian. Because when
Hmm.
I do gallery meetings, I like to laugh.
Oh my God, I just about choked. I've heard that one before.
Anyway, I don't know that I'm a walk-in. There's absolutely zero way for me to prove it. And even whether I was, I've been called many, many things since I came back by people who don't know each other and calling me the same things. They've called me everywhere from, well, Earth Angel. I used to always hear that that's a term, but then they'd also say angel. But I told them, I said, I am not an angel, but I do know them very, very well because that is where, when I said, where am I from? And they showed me the light and I went there and then I was hanging out with all these little lights. They were angels and I knew them very well. So I don't know what my relationship is with them over there. They're not letting me remember, but they sure talk to me all the time. And and I know them. They're cool. I mean that's the only way I can put it. There's no religious words or anything you can put it. They're just very cool. All these beings that I talk to are amazing. And the things they do for me out, I mean, people say, oh, you do those readings, you must be tired. I'm like, God, no, not at all. I feel they do all kind, they fix me. They fix a lot of stuff in me when I do readings. So it's always a
Hmm.
give and take. But yeah, I don't know that I'm a walk-in. I will never profess that I am, and I guess it really doesn't matter. All that I know is that I came back to do something and I'm doing it. And now that
Hmm.
I'm doing it, life is a lot easier than it was before.
But doesn't, you know what? Okay, so let's go there for a sec because, again, just a theory of mine and things, having conversation with spirit myself. And again, I'm not going to profess that I get everything 100% right. I don't. I don't think any of us do. I mean, we're human beings for a reason. But it just seems to me, yes, I agree with you. I think we have a lot more old souls here, if you will. The other thing is, most people I have met, and again, most of us don't know that, yes, absolutely 100% I am an old soul. But it seems like people I have met that you can sort of feel that energy, you can see it. I think some of it comes with clear cognizance, like, or they know stuff, but they don't know why they know it. Um, a lot of wisdom, but also they all seem to have very difficult lives. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like from childhood onwards, it seems to be a lot of things, or it could be in the adulthood, but there's always a lot of trauma sort of to get through, or a lot of healing. We could all use the healing. But I've yet to meet most people, anyways, not everybody, but most people that grew up in the TV Leave It to Beaver or June Cleaver type family, everything's wonderful and amazing. There's usually a lot of difficult things that they go through. It's almost like you've had the experience in many lifetimes that you're going to figure it out or be able to get through it.
Eventually, yeah. I know that my theory is this, and I because when I ask, sometimes when I ask stuff about me to the other side, they don't tell me.
Hmm.
And my guide will say, "Does it matter?"
Yeah.
And that's his favorite line to give to me all the time. He's like, "Does it matter?" And if I say yes, they'll give me the answer, but it won't make zero sense to me. And they'll say, "See, it doesn't matter, does it?" I'm like, "Okay, you're right." But I know people talk about exit points, and I know people used to say there's 5 exit points or whatever, whatever.
I don't
I
think any of us know that. Like,
I don't know because I can tell you I had several exit points. When I was a child, I fell headfirst into the ground off a big stock of tires. The ambulance came. I was fine for some reason, and I can tell you I remember that memory when I was falling. It felt like somebody was holding me and setting me down.
ah,
Wasn't what everybody else saw. Um, I had a person pull a gun on me and my friend. I had to back up. I did not get shot. I was supposed to go to the airport to pick up somebody, and somebody else was going to have somebody there to shoot me when I was there. This is back in the 80s and 90s. It was over some stupid stuff. That didn't happen. A man and a woman tried to get me to come into a van, and so close to doing all this stuff they could get into. I went to a guy's house that I dropped off after a bar for him, and he invited me in. And I was so drunk, I just went in, and we were going to listen to like records at the time, and he like wanted to, do this, that, and the other thing, and he was making me nervous. I mean, he went up to get to the bathroom. I was looking around his house, and I looked next to It was end table next to the couch, and there was needles on there. And the stuff that was there, my spirit guides are like going, don't let that get to you. Don't they're just letting me know, don't let that stuff get to you, whatever that is. And I don't know if this guy was shooting up people with that and like raping them or whatever. But when I saw that, I was very nervous. And the only thing I could do is I told the dude, I said, hey, I'm kind of tired. I have some blow in my car. I'm gonna run and get it, okay? Oh, he had hid my keys too, by the way.
Oh
Um,
my God.
when I asked him, I said, I'm going to go do that. So he gave me my keys and I said, I'll be right back. I got my car and I just left. I lied.
Oh,
You know,
thank God.
but I mean, stuff like that happened. Then the coma. And then after the coma, I flew off my moped into an intersection.
Oh my God. Yes, David, you are meant to be here
So,
because
so I always say they're not going to let you go for, whoever that is. My theory about what I came back with was most humans only come here with about 20-30% of their higher self. Some come in with like 70%, and those are like the tough ones. Those are like usually those are like the autistic kids, the really cool kids. They got a lot of them over here because they know how to deal. And I was telling people those kids talk to God all the time. They always know what's going on.
I have one in the other room, and I can tell you
You
from a very, very early age, you can't always communicate with him. He's a little difficult to understand, but I can tell you, okay, when I had somebody who was very high vibe light worker, the only person that agreed to come to my house to do some house clearing, okay, I watched her and him. And it's difficult for many people with autism to maintain eye contact and then try and have communication. And they were looking at each other, and he was laughing and giggling, and she was laughing and giggling. There was no words. Those two had a conversation for about 15 minutes. I had brought him for quantum, oh God, why can't I not remember the name of it? It was healing energetic type work when he was about 3 or 4. I wasn't trying to change my child. I wasn't trying to heal him in any way. He was going to be who he was going to be. But he had a lot of anxiety, had a lot of aggression because of the nonverbal. I was trying to help in that aspect. And I remember the lady that was working with him. She happened to work at a school. I didn't know until she was doing the treatment. I think it was called quantum health transformation or QR therapy or something. Anyways,
like
she,
QR
but
therapy sounds right.
pardon?
QR therapy sounds right.
Yeah. And so she came back out about 20 minutes and she said, oh my God. She said, I have never in all my years of practice ever met somebody so powerful through their third eye. Your son would not let me go through, would not let me connect in any way, shape, or form. And then she came out and said, and he has the most incredible colored aura. It's royalish, purplish blue. And I said, well, what does that mean? Because I didn't know what I know now in any way. She couldn't tell me. And then very quickly, I will also add this that,
Can you shine a light on that really quickly
go ahead.
from the colors when it's going from the blue to the purple. It's weird that it's blue and purple, but usually
That was when he was little. That was when he was very little, though. She said. So
guides on the other side, if you were to walk up to somebody who is a guide, and that's what they do over there, a guide, they would have a purple aura.
she said it was the most incredible color. She had never seen this color ever
Like
before.
maybe he's a training guide, and this is something he needed to know because
Because
a
I he
guide has
chose to come in. He chose to come in this way. No, I know all people choose this, but I mean, from the time he was born, by 5 months, I knew there was something not right. He almost died at 2 weeks. He had meningitis, and I thought a serious heart condition. He
yeah.
almost died. And after that, not that you know what your baby's going to be like, it was almost like he wasn't the same kid that I had before he got sick. And then by 5 months, I knew. But my whole point I was trying to go with is it was years later, he was very ill. They thought he had blood cancer and he was in the hospital. And we were in the same group at that time, the group that shall be remain unnamed. And somebody there was being a little pushy and had said, I'm going to be doing some energy work with your son. And they didn't ask any permission. And I just said, I was I actually was at first almost went to a place of anger, like the mama grizzly bear. And then I literally heard spirit say, just relax. He's got this. So all I said to this person is, all right, but be prepared. I said, I don't think my son will let you in. And she messaged me back an hour later and said, holy cow, you weren't joking. So he is very, I know I've had many people tell me things like this. So I know he's very powerful that way. So maybe that's why he is here. Maybe he is a guide in training.
I mean, guides still reincarnate once in a while, um, but and we all want to know this stuff. I mean, I guess what a lot of people don't understand, because people ask me, "Can I be a guide?" I'm like, you have to go through everything, uh, because you'll have to know how to help somebody else who's going through it. So you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have to all these different ways you have to die. There's all these different situations you have to get put through. There's everything like that. You have to know what it's like to
Mm-hmm.
be homeless. You have to know what it's like not to have money. You have to know what it's like to lose money, gain money. All these experiences.
Everything. Everything.
Who knows? If all we know, he said, hey, I don't know what it's like to be this kind of person in this life. Let's see how this works. And then you said on the other side, hey, this will work for me in learning what I'm supposed to learn. So I'll be your mom. Da, 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 da. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you don't know. I don't know how it all works out. I don't remember that part. I just know that it happens because they tell me that it is all decided when we come here. But every
Mm-hmm.
second of our life, though, also has possibilities, because people say, is that exactly how come they said that that's not when they're supposed to die? It's because, like, say in my life, they could have said, hey, David, between 45 and 55, there's a really strong chance that you're going to freak out and end up dying. We're just letting you know ahead of time, and I'll be like, okay, we'll tackle that when it comes, and then it happens. Um, but they'll tell you there's a potential for something to happen. So you potentially could die when you're 19 because you're going to get hooked on drugs and do this and that, or you could potentially die when you're 50 because you're going to make your spouse mad and they're very evil and they might kill you. So you have potential ways that you could die, but it doesn't mean that you're always going to have.
Okay, so let's stop right there for a second. I just got this thought. I get the weirdest thoughts when somebody's talking, but there's a reason why.
Okay.
Okay, so like you said, potentially you could die at the age of 50 because your spouse may get very angry, is evil, and murder you. But
Mhm.
okay, so let's back up a couple lifetimes. Maybe now this husband who was murdered had been the murderer in a previous lifetime or lifetimes. Okay. Where I'm going with this is though, is it potentially, like you said, with my son and I, that the wife and the husband, right? He now has to experience what it feels like to be murdered and what have you. Now the wife agrees to this to kill him in this lifetime to help him fulfill that, but it also fulfills a need for herself.
No, here's close, but no. Um,
Mm-hmm.
here's a better way to put it. Karma doesn't go by anything physical. Karma doesn't look at it as a murder, the act of killing someone or the act of being killed. It's the emotions is what karma is getting. So you can go through a murderer. Uh, you can be murdered by somebody who treated you very, very badly, and that's where the karma works out. That person, if they treated you badly and then murdered you, that's fine. Eventually that person has to be treated very badly like that. And that could even be an attempted murder. The murder doesn't have to take place. It has nothing to do with physically dying. It has everything to do with what they did to your soul, your psyche, or everything else. That's where the karma is.
Okay, maybe I used the wrong word, but where I was going with this is how that would end up because again, when someone is a murderer, they're going to create karma. They're going to right? They're going to have to experience what it feels like, if you will. But did they agree in that lifetime? You know what I'm saying? That there had to be
Did
some
the
kind of
person
agreement.
agree to be murdered? Yeah.
And she agreed to be the murderer, is what I'm saying. Like, does this fulfill a need for both of them? And this is part of why maybe that played out.
Between those two, the karmas between those two, yes, it could play out
Okay,
like that.
that's how I was trying to word it. So thank you. My brain is just working like a mile a minute here
It's
because
okay.
I'm
It's okay. It's a strange subject because the one thing is a lot of people, I hope they understand spirituality is very, very open. And that's why I tell people, no matter where you are in spirituality, be open to everything
you
because
have to be. You have to
yeah,
be.
you just have to be. It's kind of like I don't know if Dave's still on here, but like me with astrology. I suck at astrology. I suck so
So do
bad.
I, till I had another friend on here. She actually helped me understand it. But I'm going to add to that very quickly. I've met so many people in the spirituality world. Either you rock astrology or exactly what you just said. And I kind of read in there with you.
Yeah, I if I want something done with I go to an astrologer. I don't even ask my guides because when they tell it to me, I'm like, I don't get it. I'm gonna have to go to a human being, dude, because you're not
Yeah,
explaining it
but
to
it's kind of like, right, why we have certain people that do certain things in this lifetime here in the human world, right?
me.
Like you
Yeah,
need
yeah,
your car
yeah,
fixed. Not everybody's a mechanic. You're going to go to somebody
exactly.
that is able to do that, or someone's a doctor, someone's a nurse, someone's
And,
right.
yeah, and astrology. I mean, I've come across some bad astrologists, but that's because they're not using their gifts. They're just using like what they learn as far as in astrology, there's a lot of intuitive things that go into
Absolutely.
astrology. I mean, if you're in astrology and you have no intuitive abilities or psychic abilities whatsoever, you're probably not a very good astrologist because you're only going to go by the book. And we even in astrology, things are different. Just because you're in this certain planet thing and you go, well, that person's not acting like they're supposed to, it's like, well, you have to accept that because there's might be a reason. Maybe something's changing on that side. A good astrologist is going to go, hey, I've realized that this moon doesn't always affect this person. And
Mm-hmm.
this might affect this type of person, even though they're the same birth date or whatever, for other reasons.
I'm going to give you an example, okay? And Dave, I just haven't had my reading with you. I know Dave is an amazing astrologer. He really is. He's been on my show. He does a podcast now with a good friend of ours, Karen Holton. I mean, he's amazing. I love him. Talk to him on air, off air, just like I love you. And but this lady, Carmen, her name's Carmen Turner Schott. She's actually a social worker and an astrologist. And she had written a book. I always forget the name of it, but the last part was Fallen Angels. And she focuses on the 8th and the 12th house. Okay. So she gave a few very quick readings. She was pretty dead on for the people that she did. But she had asked me if she could do a very quick reading for me afterwards. And so I gave her my birth date and the year and the birth time. I don't know why I forgot to say this to her because I usually tell people that do astrology. It's a guesstimate. I have no idea exactly. It could be like a half hour to 45 minutes, one way or the other. She went through things very quickly. And the whole show was basically about why she focuses on the 8th and the 12th houses. It was actually a really interesting show. Anyways, the whole thing she says to me about 5 minutes later, Lorilei, are you sure that's your birth time? They're just, it seems like it should be about a half hour, probably later, possibly give or take a few minutes before. Again, there was a lot of intuitive things that came in, but that's what you're saying, exactly what you're saying. And I have to agree with you, Dave. You have to use your intuition as well.
You do, because
Mm-hmm.
things are going to change. And as we all know, even the earth isn't on the, it's not always on the same direction. I mean, it might
Mm-mm.
fluctuate by a couple feet here and there, and that could throw everything off. Now I know that souls do pick their astrology signs and everything because that is what helps um, make your personality. It gives you that. It's like a little ingredient to make your personality taste better or find it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I astrology. I wish I knew better. I was let's talk about astrology for a minute. I was born 4/14/66, and I was born at 10:44 in the morning.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and I know that some astrology long time ago, before I even knew anything about astrology, said you're something called a beyonder. And they're like, what's a beyonder or something
Yeah.
like that?
I don't think I've heard that term.
I think I know, and I never heard it again. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they said, it's something about that you came here intentionally to serve, to do things for others and nothing about yourself, which is funny because my love life sucked all my life. I could not keep a relationship. It's like it's not going to happen, and I don't want one anymore. But that was my whole life was trying to find that, going against me. I wasn't here. That wasn't what I was meant to do this time around. That's kind of what I felt.
You're the second guest within the last couple of weeks that said this. I have a really good friend, Heidi Hollis. who is on here, and she's actually trademarked like Shadow Man, Hat Man. We talk quite a bit actually about Jesus and angels and things because she's had experiences. She's had really crazy, strange experiences. And she actually said the same thing. Like she had what was like a near-death experience, but she didn't die. It happened in her living room while she was at college. And she said she was, because she's an occupational therapist in her muggle job, I call it, and she was in the middle of this, and when she came back, she went, "Oh my God, what am I doing in school? Like, what? I've got things I've got to do. Like, I'm not supposed to be doing this kind of thing." But that's what she said too. She said, "I knew that in this lifetime, after what had happened to me, that no, that's not what I was here to do. I was not here to have a family. I was not here to
I'm
get
totally,
married. I was."
yeah, and I'm totally comfortable with that. At
Mhm.
first, I wasn't for a minute, and I wasn't, but it actually made it. It literally took a huge weight off my shoulders. It's like, oh my God, you mean I don't have to worry about that? Cool, that's one
Mhm.
thing crossed off my list, and I don't have to do what
Mhm.
it's not necessary. So
And put
that's
your energy in other areas where you're meant to be
energies.
putting it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't
Hmm.
worry about. I know a lot of people in this lifetime worry about, am I going to see my husband when I die? I'm like, well, which one? Because you've been here
I
before. So,
know I've gotten into that one when I've thought about it, like long before even I really knew what I now know. And I would be thinking exactly what you thought. What happens like if say you're married to someone and then they die and then you remarry, or you hear like someone like Zsa Zsa Gabor, like it was 7 or 8 husbands. Like, and when you go back there, you always hear these people putting out these romantic stories. This is when I was young, about the love of their life, their soulmate, blah, blah, blah. That's another one that always gets me off on a tangent because of what people believe soulmates are, or twin flame. That's a new one everybody thinks they have. But my whole point is I was trying to figure out, like, well, what do you do? Because, I didn't understand there's not those human emotions like jealousy and stuff. I was thinking, like, do people get jealous? Like, how do you handle these relationships over on the other side?
I do know that they have told me that there are souls who have agreed to stay together a lot on the other
Yeah,
side. Marriage, marriage is unheard of on the other side because marriage is an earth thing.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's an earth thing. It's a physical reality thing. It's in here for the experience.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can do whatever you want in this life. I was looking at Dave's comment when he said it puts the spirit into a mold to help you and deliver karma and to learn. That's David. I so wholeheartedly agree with you on that. That's one of the reasons why we pick different astrology signs that we come here because of that. Because it does help you, you know.
Well, the
But
reason why this Carmen, and she'd called it Fallen Angels. I've got the book. I don't want to close it because I might lose you. Um, it's an astrology book, and it's not all she does. But there's a PR agent and publisher I work with over in Wales. He sends me the best authors always, and Carmen was one of them. And I was really, really, really curious to understand why a book about astrology would be talking about fallen angels. And I'm thinking there's got to be more to this. So, what the reason why she had called it that was through the years that she's done this, she talked about basically, a lot of your signs in the fourth house, but that wasn't really her thing. It was the eighth house and the 12th house. And she was talking about not everybody has them, but a good majority of the characteristics that you will see. So she said, like, with one thing I remember, the eighth house, she said people with the majority of their signs there, it tend to have a lot of loss, like a lot of loss, a lot of early loss. And she got into why. But with the 12th, she was talking about people, and we've all met them, that feel like they don't belong here. Like, was I adopted? Like, I don't fit in with this family. I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel like I belong here. And she said in her experience, if I quoting her correctly, their energy was just so pure and beautiful. It was literally like an angel had almost fallen to the earth here, like an earth angel. So that's why she called it fallen angels.
is
It
say that
did.
again.
So she said basically that she found that people that have the majority of their signs in the 12th house are like angels, literally like angels that have fallen, like to earth, like earth angels, like not feeling like they belong here. So
Not,
that's why she called it that.
I got you. I was gonna say,
Mhm.
yeah, because I think when people hear the word fallen angel, they think of the angel that falls to evil, that becomes evil because they're
Well,
jealous.
I wanted to find out, how are you getting astrology and this term mixed together? I got to hear this. Like you just said earlier, we got to be open to everything. And I'm sure Dave, you get this all the time too. People will message you and they'll say, this is going to sound really weird, like really, really weird. Like, I'm not crazy. I promise I'm not crazy. And I always say, try me. And even if I haven't heard of it, doesn't mean it didn't happen or you didn't experience it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. It doesn't mean that it can be. There was a lady on Facebook who watched some videos of mine and everything. She wrote that she thought, they were really good, and I said thank you so much. And
Yours
then she,
are excellent.
yeah, and then she said something about, well, I'm an angel. I'm here. I can't remember which archangel she said she was. I'm like, okay, I know angels very well, but I didn't want to be that guy. So I said, well, that's wonderful. I hope you do well while you're here. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, would you like me to do? And since she's brought out this sexual tantra stuff with angels and all that, and that's where I just wrote to her, okay, I know everything there is about angels and know them personally. You are either a scammer or are totally delusional. Because what she was saying about them, I'm like, that is just not true.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. Um, I was looking at what Dave said about the 12th house. He said the 12 houses of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, the angel thing, I forget where I'm going with that. Um,
I have seen people that claim to be angels as well. I have met one. The only thing I can tell you is I was kind of mentoring him for a bit at the time. He told me that we knew each other in a past life. He told me what the name was. And then when I did my crystal Reiki, the attunement I did, I wasn't there live. It's a whole story in itself. I've told on the show before. They kind of verified some of the stuff that this individual was telling me. Now, it was quite the story. They were on with somebody else who apparently had been to heaven themselves. They were talking about, these two were finishing each other's sentences about they'd never met. Now, maybe they were really intuitive. I don't know, but it was certainly was an interesting experience.
they could be, I mean, if you recognize a soulmate, an actual soulmate, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
talking, everybody thinks a soulmate is somebody you marry, and it's not. Your cat could be
No.
your soulmate. A soulmate is literally two souls that spend a lot of incarnations together. Those two may have spent a lot of incarnations together, and that's why they're finishing each other's sentences. And even if they
Mm-hmm.
don't think that they know each other here, they probably know each other really well.
Yeah.
That's probably the funkiest thing about the veil. Um, when you become awakened, that veil lifts a little bit, but it lifts just enough to really screw you up, to really see
I
the.
have to agree because I always say I'm not going to know all the answers till I go back home myself. I've accepted that,
Yeah,
and what I learned, I learned.
I don't know all of them either. I guess I know a lot. I probably know so much because I guess when people didn't know it, once that I had that quick death experience, I then stayed in. I was in an induced coma for a little bit, and then stayed in the coma afterwards. So I remember walking around the hospital when that happened. I remember going places during the coma,
So
and
you mean in spirit? Let's talk about that a little bit, Dave, if you're okay with that, because I know that a lot of people have a lot of questions about things like this. So you're comfortable. I know you are because you've talked about it before. So.
yeah. No, I'm totally comfortable talking about it. When I don't know the reasons why, except for the only thing I could think that sometimes my guide, he's hinted to me, he said, this happened to you and you remember it, so you have your own validation, so you know it's true, and you will know you're not crazy when you start doing the
Mm-hmm.
work that you do. And I was like, okay, dude, that sounds fine. But yes, I was around the hospital, and that was documented there. I was telling them about certain nurses in certain
So
rooms.
would you say though, for people listening, you weren't physically walking around because you were in a coma. So what would you call it that was walking around? What terminology would you use?
My astral body.
I love it. Okay, great. Hmm. Okay.
My astral body was walking around. My human body was laying there, and my soul was attached to that body. but I was walking around. I had left that body. There was, I guess it's kind of like the feeling I got was there's absolutely no point in you staying in that body while you're here. You're gonna walk around and I went all kinds of places. Gosh, I went to the airport. I remember gliding along the runway. I remember doing all these really really weird things. And the only reason I know it's true is because I would tell people about the chronological order of things that are happening, and they're like, "No, you couldn't have been there because you were laying here with tubes in your throat and all this stuff." I'm like, no, I wasn't. You
And
know,
then they think it was the drugs, and then they think it was whatever. I have
yeah.
a theory too.
They wrote the stuff down and wrote up something about it because of the fact that some nurses were saying it was the drugs, but I know one nurse who told me she like was sat with me one time and she goes, I know there's something that goes on. She goes, I want to let you know you're not the only person. But she said, you were describing things that you weren't in those places. And no drugs would have made you see that. You know what I mean? I remember the funniest thing was when I was kind of awake, I said to one of the nurses, I'm like, where's that nurse that looks like the female Robin Williams? And she and she's like, what? I'm like, the female Robin Williams. I said, she was talking to me and I was trying to answer her back, but she wouldn't listen. And she goes, how did you how did you know? And then she goes, hold on a minute. She brings her in. I'm like, oh, there you are. And it was her.
Yeah.
And she heard that poor woman's face was white as a ghost.
But you
Like,
know what? I've had patients that have coded,
yeah.
okay? And then they've come back. So for people that don't understand coding, basically, I know you know, and some people
Flat.
will, but
Yeah.
flatline, no heartbeat, no breathing, they're clinically dead, and you're doing CPR and what have you, and you bring them back. And I can tell you, I knew them because some of them were palliative, and it's do not resuscitate order hadn't been written or whatever. I didn't go in there and bring them back. I just would know it would have happened. I wasn't even my patients, but all the nurse run, on the floor will run in when there's a code or something. And, but I working nights, sometimes I would have some time to go visit with my patients. And one in particular, I remember him talking to me quite a bit about the experience. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that gentleman had a near death experience because there were things he knew, just like you said about that nurse that looked like Robin Williams.
Yeah.
There was no way on God's green earth he would have known the things he knew. I have another theory I wanted to add very quickly, and I've had this conversation with somebody off air. And after my first year of university going to study to be a nurse, I got hired on as a non registered nursing assistant in a nursing home. And there was severe dementia, what have you. And you will probably know this yourself, or anybody that knows somebody in medical field, especially nurses, you always know when it's full moon.
I had
The
to
week,
mention.
the week of, you don't even have to look. Okay. But my point is, and I don't know where I'd seen this or read this, this was years ago, but it was validation for me. And I could be wrong, but a lot of people, especially with Alzheimer's or dementia, get much worse during the week of the full moon, couple days before, during, and after. And I believe it just really resonated. And I forget where I had seen this, that people that are in that state, like when they're, it's called the sundown syndrome, or like around the full moon and they're wandering, they could be perfectly lucid during the daytime, nighttime can't get through to them. It's like they're not there. I believe that that's when many of them do a lot of astral travel. I
Oh,
really do.
oh yeah, I did a lot of that, and
Mhm.
I I can't do it on command like I when I was younger. I did. I can't do it on command anymore, which I don't know why. It just happens now when it happens. You
Do you
know,
think maybe you're too grounded?
I don't know because I don't think anybody could ever be too grounded. I think,
No, but what
but
I'm
I know what you
saying while
mean.
you're awake is what I'm saying that,
Oh yeah,
and I hear what you're saying, too grounded. Being grounded is not a bad thing, but I literally feel like when I say that, I see like almost like roots, like
oh
you're
yeah,
here.
I do root myself, and I found it very important, and they have expressed that on the other side that I do that. Always
And
take
I
a
did not know that about you. Like that's literally what spirit just gave me, like seeing roots, like
yeah.
really rooted to this physical plane.
That's absolutely true. it's basically accepting the fact that you took on and other people can't, but I can because of the situation I went in. I have come, I, I accept the fact that I am here having a human experience.
Mhm.
So since I took that much time to actually come here, went through all the shit that I've come here, I make sure that I participate in the human experience. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's why I probably appeal to be so grounded. Um, it,
Mhm.
in shamanism, I always have keep one foot in both worlds. So I
Mhm.
have one foot in the spirit world and I have one foot here at all times, pretty much. I think the only time I completely go to the spirit world is either sleep or if I do really deep meditations or channeling.
Mhm.
Then, then I take my foot off the earth and I'm like, okay, I'll come over for a minute. But I think that's wrong with a lot of spiritual people. Sometimes they're so not grounded,
I
and
agree.
God love them. They're beautiful and they're trying to do this work. But when you're not grounded and everything is airy fairy and no one's going to understand you because you
There's
won't.
no balance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gotta have balance. Balance is the big thing. It's like the
Mhm.
word of the day is
Mhm.
balance. You have to have it. You
We
have to.
know, I call that the woo woo. What you're talking about with the airy fairy. We've all met people. It's not a bad thing, but it's just they're talking about such high level concepts and love and light. It's like they don't live in the, again, I never do this. I've done it so many times, like real world with the quotation marks if you're listening. But it's like they're living almost like on a different planet. We've all met people like that. And it's not a bad thing, but it's difficult to connect with people like that, like on a regular basis. It's difficult for, I'm sure, for them to be able to get people to understand where they're coming from as well. Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh no, I totally agree. That's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely correct. I think people have to realize that they're here too. And if you have a certain gift, you have that gift in order to help people. And the best way to get that gift across is to be present in their world as well.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
have, when I talk to people, I don't like to talk down to them.
No, and you don't.
I don't use big words. I don't care about all those words. I swear because it's funny and I
I
like to.
do too. I do too. And I don't unless like if I'm doing a reading or something
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
different.
careful if I'm on air. But and then someone will let like an F bomb fly or something. They'll, oh, I'm so sorry I said that. I go, oh, thank God you did. And then
Yeah,
you know what?
who
It's
cares?
just, yeah, it's not a big deal.
The first thing I always ask people when I do mediumship readings, I usually always tell them, I'm like, um, I'm just letting you know if your loved one drank, smoked, did any of this stuff, swore a lot, or acted crude in some way, that's the personality they're going to give me. So is that okay with you?
Hmm.
Like, swear words bother you, and half the time they'll all say, "Oh gosh, no, that's fine."
Hmm.
Yeah, no, that's who they are. And usually when I give that speech, that's when they go, you sound just like my dad." I'm like, because it's your dad.
Because it is your dad. Hey, I
I,
want to, we're out. This always goes by too quickly. I'm so excited that you can come back next week. We've got a few more minutes, but I wanted to ask you, I
Mhm.
don't know why, maybe somebody needs to hear this. What is your thoughts on Bigfoot and dogmen and things that we seem to be hearing more about this? And yet it's almost, I believe Bigfoot is extra dimensional, but the thing is, why are people seeing more of this? Is it because that collectively they're believing in it more? So it's like a tulpa, so we're seeing it more? Or what's your thoughts on that? Like, what does spirit have to say about that?
It's a tulpa. Well, I don't believe that Bigfoot is a tulpa. I believe that Bigfoot is actually a real
Oh, I
being.
agree, but I meant with the where I'm going with this. Okay, like I
I
believe
think
that people that
Dogman,
look like dogs existed many,
Dogman,
many centuries ago.
Dogman, Mothman, all that. I will never say that they don't exist. I don't even have the right to do that.
No, I agree they exist.
Think most of it exists. My beliefs on my um, Bigfoot to me is interdimensional. That's
I
why
just said that. Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
I believe that wholeheartedly. And anybody you watch like professional Bigfoot hunters, uh, and I hate that they call themselves hunters,
I
but
know.
when they hear Bigfoot or anything like that or get this, there's always orbs. There's always because I believe Bigfoot are very spiritual beings, extremely spiritual beings. Um, I don't think that they kill the deer in the woods
Love it.
either. I really don't. I know that they say that, or some people say I was attacked by Bigfoot. I'm like, no, you weren't. Um, I don't. I don't think they would. I think people are seeing them more for the same reason people are seeing aliens more. They're letting themselves be known, but they're doing it in a very, very slow way. They are spoon feeding society little bits. And I think why, because eventually, and when Dave was talking about when the fifth is here, all those things will be known.
Yeah.
Every other creature outside of the earth knows about every other creature there is. There is no guest that doesn't exist. We're the only
Yeah,
culture
so
that.
when I was going with the tulpa thing, okay, say like with dogmen, like I believe in, I beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was a civilization of people that did look like dogmen many, many centuries ago on this planet. But where I'm going with this is it was like we never seen them. And then all of a sudden they're showing up. And again, I understand about Bigfoot. Like I said that right away. I believe they're interdimensional and what have you. But
I
with dogmen too, you're not hearing necessarily negative experiences, but why are we seeing them more? And when I went tulpa, what I meant was collectively is society more open to it as well as this, this
well,
ent-
it's see the whole thing.
species?
If it's a tulpa is something that is created by consciousness. I
Absolutely, like Thin
Yeah,
Man. Okay,
yeah.
that was a creepy pasta. Now we're seeing pictures and we're hearing about experiences.
I
People.
think the rake, all those demon
Mhm.
type ones. I think those are all tulpas, which
I agree.
means their existence is dependent on us actually agreeing that they're there. You know,
Okay.
um, Dogman. I agree with you on that one. I don't believe Dogman is a tulpa. I believe Dogman is a race that is coming back or just letting themselves know. Maybe this is just the right time. I don't know.
I'm just wondering the purpose to me. Like, I have great respect for Bigfoot. And Dave, I want to mention, is in Bigfoot. I was in Bigfoot country in my on my trip, and he was on quite a long trip, Northern California. He said he's actually there right now, because many years ago, Lori, is it Williams? She does remote viewing and she teaches it. She had no interest in Bigfoot whatsoever. And Connie Willis, she now doesn't have a regular program, it's a paid program, but I think it was called the Blue Rock or something. And she's like Bigfoot crazy. So she got Lori to remote view with a Bigfoot. And it was one of the most incredible, astounding, amazing interviews I've ever seen with a Bigfoot. And I believed every word of it. Every
Yeah,
word of it.
I've talked to. I have
Yeah, why
just.
don't I just ask you, Dave? How about I go there with that? Have you talked to it?
I, yeah, I have not in real time. I've talked to them in meditations.
Okay.
So I tell people they're my meditations, so it's my view, but
Right.
they tend to give me things that can be validated sometimes. Um, Basically, I do know this. They're actually smarter than human beings.
They
They're
are.
than human beings. They're more spiritual people. They remind me a lot of the what's coming back out now. People discovered the longheads. You know what the longheads are?
You got to tell me what they look like, and then I'll tell you if I know.
It's an indigenous tribe back wherever, but they all had elongated heads. There are some tribes
Okay.
that will tape the skull of babies to make them appear
Yes.
elongated. These ones, the longheads, were actually born this way. And
Wow.
very spiritual and very everything how they looked, and they've been almost eradicated off the face of the earth right now. And that's because human beings are such dickheads, and because they don't
True.
want anything like that to exist you know
Hmm.
um, but I as far as the Bigfoot's all that Bigfoot interdimensional, I believe Bigfoot just walks into this dimension when it wants to and walks out.
And
It
I've
doesn't.
seen it on camera. Like all of a sudden it's there, and then it just.
That's gone. Yeah, I would
Mhm.
love to see one day or just hear it
You got to
outside.
come visit me, Dave. I'm in Bigfoot country, huge Bigfoot country. Hmm.
Outside of I'm a big I like to validate everything. I think everything needs validation. Even like in
Yeah.
mediumship, I've been read by mediums. He said, "Oh, your grandmother's died. She liked to bake all the time." They gave me all this general grandma information and be like, "No, come on, that's every grandma." Um, you have to give something that they know in order for that connection to get really big. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like with Bigfoot. As much as I've talked to Bigfoot and some of these aliens and everything, I am always looking for how to validate what they've given me.
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying?
Honey, we got 1 minute left. Can you tell people where to find you and where your book is sold, TikTok, everything, your course you
Well,
got coming up?
I'm on TikTok, Spiritual Medium David Hanzel. I am on Instagram, same name. I haven't finished my book. I'm almost there. I keep rewriting stuff. My website is called They Whisper to Me,
Mm-hmm.
and whispertome.com, and you can write to me at david@theywhisperme.com if you have questions. I do all kinds of different kinds of readings. I do one I put out there one time. It's a clarity reading, and basically what happens is when you come there, I kind of hook into the guides and the people watching you to give you a little bit more clarity in your life. And it's really cool because they validate themselves before they do it. I thought, how are you going to do that? But they do. They do by telling the people their past, which is really weird. I'm like, does that make sense? They're like, yeah, okay, I got the right person. So I do that. I have a Facebook group called The Spirit Experience. If you go in there, I'm actually going to be doing a class soon where I
Yes.
teach people. I'm going to teach people kind of the way that they have taught me to contact beings and using all of the clairs instead of just a medium saying, I'm
I'm
clear.
taking it because I want to use it because I'm working on animal communication. I already told you. Yep.
Communication as well. But that's how you get a hold of me. Other than that, yeah. But I'll be back next week as well. So I'll say it again if you missed this one.
Okay, so Halfern Paranormal is here. Hi, you just caught the end of us. I hope you watched the beginning. David, thank you so much. Dave Petrella says, thank you, Lorilei and David. Phenomenal show. Well, David's going to be back next week. I don't know. It could just be David and I. We'll talk more throughout the week and figure out we're going to do a panel or what we're going to do. Because I kept thinking when my guests canceled on Halloween. I was thinking, oh damn, I would have asked Dave, and then I just happened to mention it to it. And he goes, I can be there, so I'm so excited. I know you guys are going to love it. So be prepared. I don't know if we're doing costumes or not. I may. The costumes not required, but I may just for the fun of it. So be prepared. My doorbell will be ringing a lot because there's a lot of kids around here, and we're in primetime kitty Halloween trick or treating right at that time. Stay tuned for the show coming up. I always forget to mention it, and I love these guys. Huff Parent or Tough. My brain is not working. Sorry. Horsefly Chronicles are on next with Dave. See, I got David on the brain. Philip and Julia Syracuse. I do know you guys love you. I was on their show. We had a great UFO ET conversation a couple weeks ago. Anyways, we'll be back same time, same space next week. Also, if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on Facebook.com/Angel Rock for readings. I do mentoring. I do energy healing sessions, Reiki. Also, I have two groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal and Angel Rocker Tribe for many things we talked about as well this evening. So David, love you. Thank you for being here. Thank
So
you for everybody in the chat here. So wherever you may be, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I send you all so much love and light. We'll see you same time, same space next week. Okay, everybody, have a good one.
Bye-bye.